This NBA season has been a weird one. Teams that were expected to be contenders like the 76ers and Suns have done the exact opposite, but the weirdest thing of all is that the Pistons actually look like a competent basketball team. For most franchises, that would be the bare minimum, but for Detroit, they're exceeding even their own expectations. Right now, they sit at the 6th seed, and they've split their last 10 games with a record of 5-5, something no one saw coming. They might even secure a direct playoff spot and skip the play-in tournament altogether. Back in October and November, I expected the Pistons to improve from last season, but not like this. To be fair, the bar was set pretty low. To add some context, last year they were the laughing stock of the league, finishing with just 14 wins and a staggering 68 losses. They also tied the NBA record for the longest losing streak in history, dropping 28 games in a row. After a season that disastrous, many people started to give up on them. There were serious doubts about whether Cade Cunningham was the right player to build around. Did the Pistons need to restart their rebuild entirely? While they weren't necessarily trying to compete and were open to tanking for another lottery pick that season, their goal was never to make history for losing. But once things started going downhill, the losses piled up like a domino effect, spiraling out of control. Heading into this season, it felt like a make-or-break year, not just for the Pistons as a team, but especially for Cade Cunningham. I've also talked about this before, but Cunningham has often been overshadowed by other young prospects simply because they played on more successful teams. Last season, a lot of people blamed him for the Pistons' struggles, and while that kind of scrutiny comes with being a former number 1 overall pick, at some point the disrespect went too far. He became severely undervalued, which was clear when ESPN released its top 100 player rankings. They had Cunningham at number 67 behind Draymond Green. There's no world in which Draymond is a better player than Cunningham right now. Malik Monk was ranked 65th, and while Monk has been great for Sacramento and is having a career year, I still wouldn't put him above Cunningham. At number 64 was Emmanuel Quickley, and for me, Cunningham over Quickley is an easy choice. Then at number 63, they had Chris Middleton, which is ridiculous considering he can't stay healthy. If the Bucks weren't so financially tied to him, I could even see them trying to shop him at the trade deadline. KCP was at 62, and by this point, it was clear that the rankings were all over the place. At the very least, Cunningham should have been in the top 50. According to this list, LaMelo Ball was ranked 50th, and I think we all can agree that Cade is far closer to LaMelo's level than he is to Draymond's. Now that the Pistons are trending in the right direction, though, it feels like people are finally giving Cade Cunningham the credit he deserves. He earned his first All-Star selection, making him the first Detroit guard to receive the honor since Allen Iverson in 2009. But this is just the beginning. His next goals are making an All-NBA team and leading the Pistons to the playoffs, and with the improvements he's made to his game, he's well on his way. One of the biggest areas of growth has been his three-point shooting, which has taken a significant leap this season. Most of his threes come off of ball screens, and this play is a perfect example. Watch how, as he comes off the screen, John Collins overcommits and puts himself in a bad position, allowing Cade to blow by him, attack the middle, and finish with a slam. That's not something we saw much of last season. Back then, teams weren't pressuring him on the perimeter. They mostly played drop coverage, but in the Jazz game, it was clear their defensive strategy was to run him off the line and limit his three-point attempts. What makes his improved shooting so important is how it helps mask some of his weaknesses. Cade is a capable leaper, as you just saw in that last play, but his first step isn't particularly explosive. He's not the type of player who can consistently blow by smaller guards. However, now that defenders are forced to guard him beyond the arc, he has more space to build up momentum and get downhill. I got to see this part of Cade's game on full display in last night's win against the Mavericks, where he dropped 40 points. While I can't show clips from the broadcast due to copyright, I'll break down what stood out to me the most from that game. The biggest takeaway was how much Cade has simplified his game. Anytime he had Klay Thompson guarding him, another somewhat slow-footed player, he didn't overcomplicate things. He'd get a step on him, use a strong bump, and finish at the rim. We also saw plenty of screenplays with Jalen Duren, and the best word to describe Cade in those moments was patient. Whether coming off a ball screen or working in the post against Kyrie, he never rushed. As a rookie or even in his second year, Cade might have missed easy finishes against smaller defenders, but not anymore. If I remember correctly, late in the second quarter, he spun off Kyrie, took a short baseline sidestep jumper, and knocked it down. That move immediately reminded me of something Shea would do. Hopefully we'll see more plays like this, where Cunningham gets a switch onto an obvious mismatch and teams can't immediately adjust because they're too worried about the Pistons' shooters. And the shooters I'm talking about are the additions of guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Michael Beasley, who have helped stretch the floor, giving Cade more space to operate. Then there's Jaden Ivey. His injury definitely lowers Detroit's ceiling this season, but before going down, he was improving rapidly. Reports suggest that the Pistons are optimistic about his return by playoff time. Even if he doesn't come back or struggles to regain his form, I'm still interested to see how the other young guys step up. Ausar Thompson is already one of the league's best defenders. Both Thompson twins have an elite ability to anticipate offensive moves and the athleticism to capitalize on them, though Ausar is still developing as a floor spacer. Jalen Duren is a strong offensive rebounder but remains a liability on defense. Tobias Harris hasn't been particularly impressive, and young players like Marcus Sasser are still figuring out their roles. Overall, though, this team is in a much better position than they were in for years. But what do you think? Are the Pistons a legit playoff team? Tell me in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.